Welcome to CM481. I am so happy that we're at this point in the semester. At this point in the class, I like to begin talking to you about leadership. Leadership is such an important skill that you have to work on, that you have to learn. And it's so important for project managers and superintendents to be great leaders. And you are about to go out into the industry and become a project manager, a superintendent. You're going to be working towards these roles in your company, and you need to exhibit great leadership skills. And so I've come up with 12 points of leadership that I want to share with you. I call it Leadership Redefined. Now, a lot of you have already heard these points. You're going to have to think way back to when you were in CM 120 and you heard these leadership points, because I come into every CM 120 class and I give these points to them. And you might say, well, why do you give it at the beginning and you're giving it to us again right now? Because you need these leadership skills while you're going through college. And I ask that you practice them while you're going through college. But they're also such great skills for going out into the industry and leading people. Now you might say, well, I'm just graduating. I'm not going to be leading anybody. Well, newsflash, you actually are. You're training to be a leader right now. You're going to be in charge of jobs on the site. You're going to be in charge of people on the site. You're going to be in charge of things when you graduate and you go to work. You are going to be a leader. Now, how far you go in leadership depends on how good you are at learning leadership skills. Not all of us are born great leaders, and I would say that even leaders that are born great leaders still need to refine those leadership skills and need to become better leaders. You are going to be a leader in the industry. It's not going to take years and years and years for you to become leaders. You're going to leave college and be leaders in the construction industry. And so I want to ask you this question, and this is an important question for you to think about. Are you willing to lead? Are you willing to lead? I'm asking you that question because you need to answer it for yourself, not for me. You need to answer this question for yourself. Are you willing to lead? Being a leader takes courage. Did you all know that? Being a leader takes courage. And I want to tell you a quick story about a courageous leader. There was this captain of a ship, and he was down in his quarters, and one of his lieutenants came running down into the bottom of the ship to his quarters and said, "Captain, Captain, there are 10 enemy ships armed and ready to destroy us on their way. We don't have much time to prepare." And the captain calmly looked up at the lieutenant and he said, "Lieutenant, bring me my red coat." And so the lieutenant kind of looked at him kind of funny, like, I don't know why, but he ran and got his red coat, got it for the captain. Captain went up on deck and commanded a victory over these 10 ships. Just an incredible victory over these 10 ships. And later, after that happened, the lieutenant came to him and he said, "Why did you want me to get you your red coat?" And the captain said, "Well, I wanted a red coat just in case I became injured and in case I started bleeding. I didn't want all of the people that were fighting to see me bleeding. I didn't want them to see my weakness. I wanted them to know that I was still in charge and commanding a victory." And the lieutenant thought, wow, that's really, really courageous. And so later, it was couple weeks later, the captain's down in his quarters again, and the lieutenant comes running down again, and he says, "Captain, there are 20 enemy ships armed and ready to destroy us on their way. We don't have much time to prepare." And the captain looked at the lieutenant calmly and said, "Lieutenant, go get me my brown pants." Brown pants, get it? Okay, hopefully you got that one. But leadership takes courage. And so you have to decide courageously, do I want to lead? Am I willing to lead? And so today I want to talk to you about leadership from a different perspective. I kind of want to flip leadership on its head. Because you may have gone through some leadership stuff, and you may have learned some things about leadership in some of your previous classes or in high school or from some other areas of your life. But I want to talk to you a lot about leadership from a different perspective. And I honestly want to flip things on their head and have you think in a different way about what leadership is. I'm going to go through 12 points. 12 points that I want you to write down, and I want you to take notes on. And mostly I want you to take notes on what I say, but I want you to take notes on what it means to you. When I give you something and you're writing down kind of what I'm explaining about it, I want you to write down what this means to you and your future. Anything that you can think of. I think that is really, really important. So my first point for you is probably the most important point. If you remember nothing else from what I say at all, okay, I want you to remember this one point, and that's why I put it first. It is probably the most important leadership point that can help you throughout your career, throughout your life. And so I really want you to write it down. I want you to remember it. And I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to explain what it means to you, should mean to you, and what it means to me. It's be a servant leader. Personal relationships are part of the profile of the builder. Construction is all about personal relationships. And one of the best ways to cultivate those personal relationships is through servant leadership. Now I want to tell you another story. And this one doesn't have a punchline, okay? So don't be waiting for that. It has a point. And it's an old tale, okay? And it's a tale of a forest. And this forest was looking for a leader. And this forest was looking for somebody to step out and be a leader in this forest, okay? And so they were looking at all the trees. And there was all kinds of different trees in this forest. And so they looked and they found this apple tree. And this apple tree was great. It was big, it was beautiful, and it made the most delicious apples. And these apples would feed the animals of the forest. And it just produced so much fruit. And they said, "Hey, apple tree, would you be the leader of the forest?" And the apple tree looked at them and said, "Well, I don't have time to lead. Do you see all of this fruit I'm making? I mean, if I became a leader, I wouldn't have time to make all this fruit, and all the animals of the forest would die." And so they said, okay, and they went and they found another tree, and this was a peach tree. And this peach tree was beautiful and produced all this incredible fruit. And they asked the peach tree, "Hey, would you be our leader? Would you be the leader of this forest?" And the peach tree said, "Don't you see all this fruit I'm making? I am so busy. There is no way that I have time to go lead. It just, I just don't have the time. And if I stopped making all this fruit, then all the animals of the forest would die. So they said, okay. So they kept looking and looking and looking. And then they found this thorn bush. And this thorn bush was big. And it covered a lot of area. So they're like, oh man, that's impressive. And so they said, thorn bush, would you be the leader of the forest? And the thorn bush said, heck yeah, why not? I'd love to be the leader. That'll look really cool for a thorn bush like me to be the leader of this forest. And so the thorn bush became the leader of the forest. It said, I'm willing to lead. And shortly after that, the thorn bush started to do its thing. You know how they do. And they grow out. And then it started to grow around the apple tree, and it started to grow around the peach tree, and started to work its tentacles up and around all of the branches, and eventually started to strangle out the oxygen and all of the nutrients, and take the nutrients from these trees. And eventually both the apple tree and both the peach tree started to not produce fruit anymore because they couldn't. And then the animals of the forest started to disappear. And it was not too long until that forest failed and everything in the forest died, because everything was interconnected. Now, the reason I tell you this is because a lot of times companies work this way. Our industries work this way. It says, okay, well, look at this person. They're doing a really, really good job, and they're producing a lot of work. Maybe they'll lead, but no, they're too busy to lead. So they go to somebody who maybe, looks impressive, but maybe isn't producing as much. So they say, well, will you be the leader? And then what happens is that person starts to strangle out all the people that are producing. And they do this through micromanagement. You've heard of that, right? That is just getting intertwined and tangled into the branches, into the everyday activities of the people who are actually doing the work and producing the fruit of the company. And when they do that, it starts to strangle out everything that person needs in order to be successful. The freedom that person needs to grow and be successful. Because that's the type of person they are. And so those companies fail. Those projects fail. Those people start to not produce good fruit anymore. This is what happens in companies. It's what happens in industry. So I'll ask you this again. Are you willing to lead? Are you willing to be that person that not only produces good fruit because you're all a bunch of hard workers, but are you willing to cultivate others so that they can produce fruit, so that they can be successful in what they do, which will ultimately make you successful and will ultimately make the company successful? Well, servant leadership is the way to do this. Okay, servant leadership is not the thorn bush. It's not the micromanagement. So, servant leadership is really a timeless concept. It's been around for a long time. Since we started writing things down, servant leadership has been around. But there are a lot of times that it gets forgotten. Now, the term servant leadership was coined by a guy named Robert Greenleaf. And it was in an essay published in 1970. Now, I just want to read you a couple of things from this essay, okay? And I want you to listen real close to what I'm saying. he says, the servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. That person is sharply different from the one who is leader first. Perhaps because of the need to assuage an unusual power drive or to acquire material possessions. The leader first and the servant first are two extreme types. Between them, there are shadings and blends that are part of the infinite variety of human nature. The servant leader. The difference manifests itself in the care taken by the servant first to make sure that other people's highest priority needs are being served. The best test, and difficult to administer, is, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit or at least not be further deprived? So, the servant leader focuses primarily on the growth and well-being of people and the communities to which they belong. That's the servant leader. Traditional leadership generally involves the accumulation and exercise of power and accumulation of materials and accumulation of wealth. But the servant puts the needs of others first and helps them to develop and perform better. You know, I've coached a lot of teams that go to the ASC competition in the past. And there's usually a point within those teams, and this goes for all of the teams that you're going to be involved in school and in industry. But there comes a point where there starts to be some conflict because everybody's working so hard and some people maybe aren't cutting it on their end, you know. And so there usually comes a point in these teams where the leader will come into me and say, well, so-and-so is not doing this. They're not getting this done. This person, you know, is just not pulling their weight. And I look at them, and the first question I ask them is, what have you done to help them be successful? What have you done to help them be successful? Not, well, how do we encourage them? It's what have you done to help them be successful? You're the captain of this team. You're the leader of this team. And you should be serving them to help them be successful. So what does servant leadership look like? Well, if somebody's not getting the schedule done, you say, well, what can I do for you to help you get that schedule done? What is it that you're missing? Do you need resources? Do you need better templates? Do you need me to sit down with you and help you? Do you need others to sit down and help you? Do you need more meeting time with the superintendent? What do you need? What can I get you? What can I do for you to help you be successful? Because here's the great part, guys, is that as soon as that person's successful, then the leader is successful because their team is successful. If the team fails, the leader fails. This is huge. You want to be successful as a leader? Then make your team successful. How do you make your team successful? You give them what you need. You help them to be successful. Everything works out. Everything works out. And your team starts to produce fruit and get things done and have great projects. And then you as a leader get to say, man, look at the incredible things that my team is doing. And then that person up there, you know, the CEO of the company who's looking at you is saying, wow, man, that guy's doing a great job. Look at how successful his team is. He must be a great leader. We're going to promote him. We're going to make him, you know, the next vice president of awesomeness. And he's going to we're going to give him $300,000 a year. That's a great idea. Okay, so this is how things work. But a lot of times, there's so many people that are like, all right, well, I'm the leader. I need to make sure that person and that person and that person and that person are all doing their job and getting their stuff done. Because if not, I'm coming down on them hard, or I'm going to fire them, or I'm going to lay them off. We'll get somebody in there that will do it. So many times leaders are like that. And that's not what we're looking for here. Servant leadership is different. Do you see how we're flipping leadership on its head a little bit here? I want you to start thinking about leadership in a different way. Not what you've always thought about, but servant leadership. My next point for you, number 2, yeah, we're only to number 2. Don't worry, they go quicker. Is carry yourself like a winner, because you are. Success as a leader takes confidence. You need to carry yourself like a winner, because you are. And let me tell you this, and I want you to write this down with that short pencil. When leaders lack confidence, followers lack commitment. When leaders lack confidence, followers lack commitment. Can you imagine following somebody into battle, and this person who was supposedly leading your folks said, well, I don't know if we're going to make it out of this alive. I'm not even really sure why we're doing this. Didn't have a high commitment level to that goal. I don't think I would want to follow that person into battle. My commitment level to that leader would be very, very low, because his confidence was low. Leaders who lack confidence will have followers who lack commitment. And I'm not asking you to be arrogant, because that's not what I'm talking about. We'll get to that. Don't worry. But I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm talking about knowing you're going to be successful. Having confidence that you're going to be successful. Carrying yourself like a winner because you know you're going to be successful. That's what I'm talking about. Every year in this program, we have people that come into it. And you might know some already. And if you don't know some already, then you might be that person. So listen closely. But every year we have people that come into this program who are very full of pride. And they think they know everything. Well, I've got the answer to this. I've got the answer to this. You ask me a question. Don't you want the answer from me? And they're very full of pride, and they think they know everything. They think they're a know-it-all. And they might know a lot. Usually they do know quite a bit. But they don't know everything. And if we're lucky, as professors, we're able to help them through that and help them get over that habit of being that know-it-all person before they get out into the industry. Because pride and arrogance just do not have a place in our industry. That is not part of the profile of the builder. And trust me, it's not fun for them if they get out into industry and they haven't been humbled yet. Because here's our third point: walk in genuine humility. You want to walk in confidence because you know you're going to be successful. You want to carry yourself like a winner because you know you're going to be successful. But at the same time, you need to walk in genuine humility. You need to be humble, or be humbled. And I'm going to ask you to write that down too. Be humble or be humbled. Because these same folks that came into the program and maybe were full of pride and arrogance and weren't able to curb that before they went out into industry. I've seen these same people, and what happens is their companies will humble them. And if one company doesn't humble them, they're probably going to not last with that company. And then they're going to get sent to the next company that they get a job with, and maybe the next company. Because you need to be humble in our industry, because you don't know everything. People that have been doing this for 30, 40 years don't know everything. And they'll tell you that. We learn new things all the time in this industry. And so these folks that are not humble, they usually get let go. And usually they call me up and they have a million excuses as to why that company was no good. And why that company, didn't listen to them, and they had great ideas, but, that company just wasn't forward thinking, and, et cetera, et cetera. Lots and lots of excuses of why they got let go. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I knew you for 4 years, and I kind of understand probably what those people were seeing in you. I'm not telling them this, but I'm seeing it, and I know why they probably let you go and why you're having to look for a new job. And you're really smart, so you will find a new job. But if you don't humble yourself, you're going to get humbled again and again and again and again until one of these days, hopefully, you realize pride and arrogance really doesn't have a place in our industry. Walk in genuine humility. I was talking with a bunch of seniors, and we were talking about how our industry is perceived. And sometimes it's okay to have some pride in our industry, okay? It's okay to have some pride in what you do. So that's not what I'm talking about when I'm saying be humble. But there is pride in what you are doing, what you're going to go out into the industry and do. But these seniors were saying, yeah, my friends, they think we're just in this, dirty industry that's really dangerous, and yeah, you wear boots and ripped up jeans all the time, and you're just coming home tired and dirty, and that's what the perception of the industry is. And I told them, there's to a point that's correct. To a point, you're right. But we're also in an industry where we need to dress up, where we need to wear suits, where we need to negotiate with billionaires, where we need to make lots of money, and we drive really nice trucks or really nice cars, whatever you're into. And we make $1 million decisions almost every single day in this industry. So, yeah, you're right. This is an industry where we might get dirty every once in a while. But it's also in an industry where we are doing some serious things. And we are doing some serious business with high stakes and high dollar values. And we can be proud of that. We can be proud of what we're doing. And I would look at you and I'd say, be proud of the industry that you're going into. Be proud to build America. You're building their future for them. They couldn't do what they do if you don't do what you do. If you don't build the building for them to do business in, they're never going to do business. If you don't remodel the inside of their house, they can't live. If you don't remodel the inside of their office building, they can't do what they do, and they're not going to be as successful. You are building America, and so be proud of that. So when I talk about being humble, I'm not saying don't be proud of what you're going to do. Be proud of the industry that you're going into and what you guys are going to do. And in that, I want to say, number 4, make no little plans. Make no little plans. Now, A builder, the profile of a builder is self-respect. There's a lot of self-respect. The construction workers are proud of what they do. Construction crafts people are proud of what they do. When they look at a big high-rise building, or they look at a set of plans for a high-rise building, they don't say, oh man, I don't know if I can do that. They say, that's awesome. Bring it on. Bring it on. I can do that. And so I found this really awesome quote by a guy named Daniel Hudson Burnham. And he lived from 1846 to 1912. So, old dude, all right? But he was an American architect and urban planner. He was that master builder that could do all of it. Okay? He was a city planner for Chicago and Washington, D.C. He also designed a lot of famous buildings like the Flatiron Building and Union Station. Famous buildings. And he had this great quote. And you'll find this quote hung in our CM computer lab, because somebody grabbed onto this quote and said, that's a great quote. We're going to hang it in the lab. And so he said, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. Make big plans. Aim high in hope and work, remembering that a noble logical diagram, once recorded, will never die, but long after we are gone, be a living thing, asserting itself with ever-growing insistency. Remember that our sons and our grandsons, and I'll add in granddaughters, are going to do things that would stagger us. Our sons and our grandsons and our granddaughters are going to do things that would stagger us. That's you. He's talking about you. You're going to do things that would stagger people from back then. Make no little plans. Do you guys, I want you to think about this. Do you guys know what holds us back from making big plans, from having big dreams for our life? Do you know what that one thing is that keeps us from doing that? It's one thing. It's fear. Fear holds us back from making big plans. Fear holds us back from making those big dreams and having those big dreams. It's fear. Your greatest success lies on the other side of your fear. You have to get over that fear. Make big plans. Get over that fear. Your greatest success stands on the other side of your fear.